Hello and a big warm welcome to you. Welcome to this Facebook Live on stopping hitting yourself with emotional sticks. So there's already a little example, you see. If I was hitting myself with emotional sticks, I could notice that I didn't say the word I meant it to say. Look, I can do it on that as well. And I could pick up a stick and I could hit myself with it and say all kinds of harsh things to myself. As I'm going to talk about in this Facebook Live, I am going to share about how you can stop hitting yourself with emotional sticks. So, I wonder if anyone's going to show up live. Let's start talking anyway. So, what do I mean by emotional sticks? So, first of all, I actually want to rewind a little bit before that, and I'm going to be reading some notes, so I'll make sure I say everything I want to say. So, if you saw two children in a park, and you just need to look to see where, if I look there, does that mean looking, anyway, I'm going to look there. See, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this if I was doing the sticks thing. I would be saying all kinds of things from the past. If this had been a few years ago, I would have already done. I would be very emotionally bruised. Anyway, if you saw two children in a park and one of them was hitting the other one with a stick, would you keep watching? Would you just keep watching and do that? And what happens if it wasn't just one time, but just it was day in, day out, that, you know, there'd be these times where one child would hit the other child with a stick? What would you do? What would you do? Would you keep watching? Would you set a loving limit? Would you go and intervene? Would you do something about it? Have you ever wondered why? And I imagine you are hitting yourself with emotional sticks, otherwise you probably wouldn't be here on this Facebook Live. Have you ever wondered why? So I'm going to give you another example. Look, I can see my son's Crocs right there outside. Probably in the past I would have gone, oh no, what are they going to think? They can see my son's Crocs. Oh look, there's my fridge. They can see my fridge. I'm not doing any of that. So, have you ever wondered why you keep doing this? I'm to this, I'm to that. What would they think? La la la, da da da. All the harsh things that you probably have going on through consciousness at particular times. So, emotional sticks, what are they? So they're basically all the harsh words that go through your consciousness, your mind, and you listen to and believe. So emotional sticks are judgments that you believe, they're shoulding yourself, they're all that, the harsh things, the harsh thoughts. And just as the stick in the park leads to a physical bruise, emotional sticks lead to emotional bruises. So emotional bruises are things like shame and guilt and the pain that you feel when you believe those harsh words that go through your consciousness. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for those who are joining in. Come and say hi. Come and let me know if you have any questions or anything you want to share. So, why do you hit yourself with these emotional sticks? So basically those words, or the flavour of those words, were originally words you heard as a child from someone else, or it may have been that you heard those words spoken to your siblings, or maybe at school you heard those kinds of things spoken to other children. So it may not always be that you directly heard them to yourself, but generally it is. But sometimes it can be that we've observed that happening in our culture, in our schools, in our families, or we actually experienced them ourselves. So someone said those harsh words to us. And the first time you heard those, the first time we all heard those, that would have been painful. We would have felt pain. We would have felt hurt. We would have felt upset. We would have felt some kind of maybe shame if it was a judgment, or maybe not the first few times because we didn't quite understand it. You know, it depends on the age you were and what the exact thing was. But imagine you would have felt some version of uncomfortable feelings inside you. But then, and this is the paradoxical thing, is that you started to believe them. We all started to believe those things. We started to believe them. And why is that? Well, partly because as children we need to belong, we need to be loved, we need to be included, we need to We need to believe that the adults that we're in care of know more than us and they're keeping us safe, because actually it's really scary otherwise to think that they're not. So for all these various reasons and more I'm sure I haven't mentioned, we internalize those words and we identify with them. So we identify with them. What does that mean? Well, we believe them to be true. We make them as part of us. We identify with those thoughts. They become part of our identity. But then what happens is, and this is the really sad thing, is even if you were told those things many, many times when you're growing up, as we go through life, it may be that you've come past the point where you've actually done that, you said that to yourself, or believed those thoughts more times than you originally heard as a child when you were hurt hearing those things. Maybe you've actually done that or believed those thoughts more as an adult than you actually spoken to as a child or teen. Hi, Annalie, welcome, welcome. So, and this may not, I know a little bit about your background, Annalie, so this may not resonate with you at all. But for those who are watching, or you're watching the replay and you do hit yourself with emotional sticks, did you know that continuing to do this is actually a choice? It really is a choice. It's actually not something that you have to keep doing for the rest of your life. Did you know it really is possible to stop believing those internalized voices, those sticks? How do I know that? How do I know it's possible? Well, if you know my work already, you might have heard my story that I used to be the most filled with self-judgment, shoulding. I had more shame than pretty much anyone I've ever met, more guilt, more emotional bruises than most people I've met. Oh, hi, Natalie, and hi, Annalie. Hey. So I used to be like that. I used to be filled with it. I was completely identified with those thoughts. I completely believed them, and now I'm not. I actually, I pretty much never feel guilt nowadays. Pretty much never, and shame and self-judgment. It occasionally comes in, and I do occasionally believe it for a little tiny bit, but often, and I'm going to talk about the process which I do and how I've got here. But very, very rarely, very rarely. And you know, there's still more to do, because I'm sure there are still pieces that I'm not yet conscious of, which I'm really willing to work on. But I actually wouldn't have believed it would be possible to change an inner dialogue from what I used to experience to what I experience now. It's thank you for all everything, all the flowers and the wows and the hearts. I love them all. Hi, gorgeous. Oh, now, there you go. Can you actually hear me? Now, okay. So I love that life's giving me all these examples. I have my headphones in, but have I actually got it plugged in? So you'll probably be able to hear me more clearly when I do this. So there, I'm just giving you little examples throughout this that, again, in the past, there would have been really hard dialogue about that. There would be, and I don't even really like thinking about what it would have been, but it would have been like, oh my God, what are people thinking of me? And oh, I'm so, it would have been really harsh and horrible and violent and really just so unenjoyable. I would have been, by this point now, filled with shame, so uncomfortable, like probably not able to think clearly anymore, probably starting to not be able to speak or think, because I would be absolutely filled with shame because you saw that I didn't have my thing plugged in. So see, little tiny things like that would have then I would have been like not just hitting like, but bashing myself multiple times over something like that. And I don't anymore. I'm just not willing to. I'm a little bit sad that maybe it'd be a little bit fuzzy at the beginning, but I actually also love that. Oh, look. Ooh. Do you always have that thing where once you know that the non-verbal behavior, that when you scratch your nose, it means you're lying? I was like, oh, okay. See, I wouldn't have been able to say that either. Anyway, I love that life is bringing all this in the Facebook Live so that I can share it all with you. Annalie, I think they're automatic. There's so many of them. Yes, so I'm going to really talk about the whole automatic thing, and that's part of the identifying. That's what we do as children. We grow up and I was imagining you wouldn't have any, Annalie, actually, but as we grow up, we do identify with them. They become part of the regular thinking process that we're just used to. So, you know, like so much of our processes, they become automatic so that we can get on with doing things, but we can make them conscious again, and we can do what I'm going to be talking about today. So keep on sharing, love to hear more for you, and oops, I'm in the smiley, that's all right. And yes, I also want to let you know, for any of my Facebook Lives, feel free, because I'm noticing now there's 2 of you, and I know you're here, and feel free to not stay the whole time if you want to. I know there might be another little example. There may be some shoulds there. You know, we have all these things like, what are they going to think of me, or I should do this, or, you know, all these kinds of internalized thoughts that lead to emotional bruises. So what I'm going to talk about is how you can stop hitting yourself with emotional sticks. How can you stop doing all this stuff? So the first thing I think, one of the things I think is helpful to do kind of early on, is to ask yourself, are you willing to stop hitting yourself with emotional sticks? And you might be interested to hear what the answer is, because we might think, well, of course I am. But actually, often as children, we were told that it was good for us. It was for our own good to be punished. And judgment and should and all these kinds of things, they are part of punishment. They're verbal punishment. And really the whole behaviorism paradigm, see, there's another time I could have done that. I'm just showing you all the opportunities and all the points where they would have come in. There would have been much more than that, but and then there would have been one there about the behaviorism really is based on the idea that children need to be punished and rewarded in order to become helpful members of society. Basically, that's the whole belief. And so the idea is so it's good for them. It's good for them. And we internalize that as well, because often when we're growing up at school, in our families of origin, again, with no judgment of them, because that's what they grew up with, that's what gets passed down, is you know, the belief that it's good for us. We need to be punished, and we need to have shame, or we need to have guilt, because if we didn't have guilt, then we would, well, what? So that's the really helpful question to ask yourself. Is there any fear there? What's your fear? Is there some concern that if you didn't feel guilt and shame and you weren't judging yourself, that you may end up, the example I always come up with is that you're going to end up lying on the couch all day, eating whatever your food of choice is, watching Netflix or reading novels, or again, you know, whatever the thing is, that might be the fear, that you might ignore your children completely. You might, you know, whatever the thing is for you. So it may have already come up for you. So I invite you to connect in. Are you willing to stop hitting yourself with emotional sticks? And if you're going to get a yeah, it's probably not a real yes. And if you go no, if you say no, then you can ask yourself, why not? What am I afraid of? What am I protecting myself from? And you may find that you're interested to see what arises. And I think this part's really important to connect with, because you know, these things that we did them for really important reasons. As I say, we did them to be included, to fit in, to believe that our parents and our teachers were all knowing, you know, all those kinds of important things. So often it isn't just about stopping ourselves. It's actually about, some of those things need to be reconfigured. You know, like, oh gosh, you know, it really wasn't the most helpful thing to be shamed, or to be shoulded, or to be judged in those ways. So it's basically the willingness practice. For those of you who know already, is the first thing is asking yourself, am I willing? And then if you're not, is connecting in with why not? What am I afraid of? What am I protecting myself from? And then you might want to bring in your inner loving mother, if you have connected with her, or the divine mother, or any archetype that represents compassion to you. And you might then give empathy to those fears or concerns. So you might say, sweetheart, I really hear that you're worried that if you stopped feeling guilty and ashamed, that you would spend all day on the couch watching Netflix and eating chocolates. really hear you. And you really don't want to do that because you really value being with your children, being present with your children, contributing in the world, all the values that you have, caring for your pets, caring for your family, being loving, all the things that you wouldn't get to do if you're on the couch all day, or whatever your thing is. So after you've done this role, you may find, keep giving empathy, keep really hearing those fears, because and really hearing what are the values, what's actually underneath that, what do you really want to stay with, whilst you get stopping hitting yourself with emotional sticks. What do you want to keep? What's really important to you? What yeah, so you're really kind of connecting there with whatever beliefs you've acquired around why this kind of dialogue is helpful, this inner dialogue. So you might find after a bit of empathy that you might feel a sense of relief in your body. You might go, oh yeah, I really do value being present with my children. I really do value connecting with my partner. I really do value, you know, whatever the things are, going and contributing in the world and making a living, or, you know, all the things that you might say. Exercising, caring for my body, whatever it is. And then you might want to invite in, if you've already connected in with him, your inner loving father or the divine father, or whatever archetype for you represents logic and encouragement and rational thinking and really thinking clearly about things. And you may find that, or maybe that doesn't really resonate with you, just any part of you that really enjoys that way. And then to really think, okay, so how might it be that actually that perception is kind of a little bit skewed? Perhaps actually if I stopped feeling, you know, it might be your inner loving father, so you might say, you know, perhaps if you stopped feeling guilty, you might actually be able to be more present with your children. Does that resonate? And you might go, yeah, oh gosh, actually yes, because I notice that when I'm guilty, I'm actually not able to connect with them because I'm so filled with this, well, the guilt, which is basically the emotional bruises of the shoulding. Oh yeah, so without that guilt, I would actually be more present. I'd be more available. I'd be able to do more X, Y, and Z. So it's really thinking with really clear thinking, you know, questioning those things that we've had and really turning them around. And what I often find is it's usually 180 degrees opposite to what we've what we've concluded, which is usually actually, in this case, stopping hitting ourselves with emotional sticks is actually going to lead to more of what we value. We're going to be more able to contribute more in the world. We're going to be more connected. We're going to be more loving. We're going to be able to give more. We're going to be able to, you know, all the things that we, that perhaps we were concerned we wouldn't do. So then you can ask again yourself, am I willing? Am I willing to stop hitting myself with emotional sticks? And you might want to say, you know, gradually, because it is a gradual process to change your way of thinking. So you can ask yourself. So that can be a really important part of it, because sometimes we can aim to do something and change something, but if we're actually not willing because of these underlying pieces, then we're actually not going to do it. We're going to stop, or we're going to lose interest, or we're going to forget about it because we haven't really listened to these inner parts of us. So the more we can hear all the different parts and you know, all the often the younger parts that really need to be heard, and our values that really need to be honored. Natalie, so love you. Oh, thank you, sweetheart. I love you too. And this whole process, if we're too busy hitting ourselves, we're too busy to engage with what we actually value. Yes, so hear you, so hear you. And hello, Dolit, welcome, welcome. And that's what I really experienced when my children were younger, and I noticed I'd do something and then I'd be doing, you know, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't do this, or you're full, you should blah, 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 blah. And I'd be so filled with guilt. I was so not present with them, you know, it'd be like, there's, you know, very little consciousness available to be loving and present. I might be trying to be, but there's so much of this painful guilt in my body, I really couldn't give what I wanted to give. So it actually works against, you know, guilt in particular. It actually works against what we often think. We often think, well, I'll be more guilty and then I'll be more loving. But actually, the more guilty we are, the less love we have available, because we've got these emotional bruises. So, let me pause, see if there's anything else I wanted to say. So that was really helpful for me to go, to really see, and I call it an old, guilt in particular, an old-fashioned motivational method. And I think in the olden days and olden ways of thinking, it was thought, yes, guilt's a really good thing because it makes you, and it's good. It makes you be a loving member of society. But actually seeing rationally from that rational part, is that actually true? No, it's not true. Well, do I want to keep doing it then? Well, no, not really. Leslie, yes. So I'm so passionate about really connecting in with really questioning these things. And I know that's one of your passions, that is really untangling some of these cultural things that we carry in, to go, well, oh, you know. And another thing I think is, you know, guilt is just part of being a mother, and you have to feel guilty, and it's kind of a thing that we all have. And, you know, I have a lot of compassion for guilt and how painful it feels, but my passion is actually helping women get free from guilt, because my own experience is being free from guilt has meant I'm much more joyful. I have much more to give to my children. I have more to contribute to the world. You know, I have a whole lot more body energy and capacity to be that loving, contributing member of society than when I was filled with guilt and shame. I'm going to have a real bruise on my head, aren't I? So another thing you can do is, which refers really to what you're talking about, Annalie, is to become more aware of the emotional sticks and the effects on your body and your feelings and your behavior. Now, this can be a really painful part. I really want to send love, but I really want to remind you that this is actually happening, but we're just not conscious of it. So it's even though it's painful, it's kind of it's really just bringing to consciousness what's actually already happening. So any compassion you can give to yourself during this part and this phase is really, really helpful. So, because as we're talking about, when we've internalized all these thoughts, we don't even realize that they're there often. So, for example, you may feel shame, but you might not be aware that before the shame, there was a judgmental thought about yourself that you believe to be true. And see, this is another one of my passions. We often think that shame and guilt are just like all the other feelings. They're like sadness. They're not like sadness. They're not like frustration. They are different. And, you know, I could do a whole long thing about that. But in my Love Being a Mother ebook and thing, I talk all about that. But really they're very, very different, because they're caused by the thoughts. Shame is caused by judgmental inner thoughts. So you may be aware of the shame, but you may not be so aware of the thought that precedes it. So becoming aware of, okay, I'm feeling shame now, we start to bring more light and more consciousness. So already we're starting to disidentify from the thoughts, because the more we're becoming aware, the more we're becoming a more expanded identity, because if we're being aware of it, then there's a part of us that isn't that. So we're already starting to go, when we start to go, wow, gosh, so actually I felt shame, and the thought right before that was, I don't even like saying that, but you know, you're so blah, 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 blah. And then and then I feel the shame, and how does it feel in my body? And I just feel like, it's like, so uncomfortable, and you know, whatever the sensations are in you. And then you may notice the behaviors that you might be likely to do. So you might want to hide away, you might want to retreat from your children or your partner or your friends. You might notice there's these particular things that often happen. So becoming aware it's so much part of that disidentification process, because it's like, we're becoming bigger, we're becoming, rather than being one with this, which is basically we're identified with these thoughts. We think they are us. We believe that they are us. The more we start to notice them, the more we are more than that. I'm more than these thoughts. These thoughts are happening, and this is the feeling, and this is the body sensation, this is the behavior. So we start to go, that's not me. That's wow. And I'm actually going to write a little note for myself, because I'm making an article of this as well. I'm just going to write consciousness expands. Does anyone have any questions? So what else? Well, you might feel guilt. But you might not notice that before the guilt came some should thoughts. You know, I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that. Always precedes guilt, because guilt isn't just a feeling that comes from the body. It's you know, I talk about three. I am going a little bit to talk a bit more, but I talk about three main types of feelings. So there are feelings that come from unmet needs. So that might be we feel lonely when we need connection, or we feel hungry when we need food. That's the first type. The second type is when we have feelings that are coming up to be heard and healed, feelings generally from the past that are coming up to be heard and healed. So I call these needs feelings, feelings, and then thoughts feelings. So thoughts feelings arise after these kinds of thoughts that we have. And so babies basically don't have those. Babies only have these two types of feelings. But as they live in the culture that we live in, they start to acquire these third types. So these feelings don't arise from the body, they arise from the mind. And it's really important to remember that. And so why, when we're doing this work, this isn't devaluing or disconnecting from our body. It's actually questioning some thoughts that we acquired in growing up in our culture. And you might notice that when you should yourself about your parenting again, that you feel guilty, and actually maybe then your child asks you something and you're more frustrated, or they're upset and you're kind of so in this that you cannot really be there. You may notice again these observable outcomes that happen. The guilt, the should thought, the guilt feeling, the sensations in your body, and the likely behavior and outcome to that. So again, you're going, oh gosh, look, rather than this is I am this, I am the guilt, I am these thoughts. We start to become more, we start to become bigger, we get more expanded. So I wonder how this is sitting with you so far. So as we develop this awareness, another step which I think is so important, because what's that saying, that nature abhors a vacuum, that as we're starting to really question these ways of thinking, is to bring in something as an alternative. So for me, that's where it's really important to start cultivating an inner voice of compassion. And this can be really hard at first. A couple of ways I find can be kind of hacks into that. One is what kinds of things do you enjoy saying to your child that feel really compassionate for you? There might be, you probably know mine. Mine are, I'm right here with you, I'm listening, I love you. I like to keep it pretty simple. I'm right here, I'm listening. Oh, yeah, I'm right here. Yeah. Or you may find, if you're in a particular situation, another way to help yourself find that compassionate voice is, imagine your child is your age now and you're now the grandparent. What kinds of things would you say to your child in this exact situation? So these are kind of hacks and ways in that we can connect with the loving parts of us. And then if you want, you can start choosing to say those words to yourself. Now, here's another really important part, which is similar to doing the willingness practice, and why this is so different from affirmations. It's not just this outer thinky thing we're doing, because what happens is, I wonder if you've had an experience with your children, I imagine you might have done, where maybe they're kind of upset, something's going on for them, and you might say, I love you, sweetheart. And actually they might say, well, I don't love you, or I'm aware you might have children there, so I'm going to tone down some of the things. You might say, I love you, sweetheart, and they might say, I don't believe you, or so what happens at these times is, when we shine unconditional love, it often allows hurt parts that didn't at times experience being loved or being heard or being listened to, being valued, to come up to speak. So often at this point people go, oh, I'm doing it wrong. So they'll start judging themselves. They'll do this. But actually that's often part of the healing process, is actually these parts need to be heard. So again, we can have our inner compassion, which may be a loving mother, the divine mother, to start coming in and responding lovingly and compassionately to those, rather than going, I'll just pretend those aren't there. It's like, here's some more parts that need to be heard. Okay, I'm going to come and hear you. So you might say, so some of the other things that the little child parts might say is, I don't believe you. you didn't listen before, so I don't trust you. Those kinds of things may come up when we start choosing loving, compassionate ways of responding to ourselves. So the inner loving mother, divine mother, the loving, compassionate part can really hear those parts. So she might say things like, I hear that you don't, sweetheart, and I'm still here. I'm listening. I'm going to keep on loving you. She might say, I hear that you hate me, lovely, and I'm right here. I'm listening. I love you. She might say, I hear that you don't trust me, sweetie, and that it was really painful to not be heard. And please take as much time as you need to trust me. I'm not in any hurry. I'm right here. I'm always going to be here with you. So do you see how, again, it's a depth healing. This is not about just the thoughts. The thoughts are a part of it, but it's so much deeper than that, because all these levels are really important. And in order to create change, often we do need to work at these levels too. So as the process continues, you may notice that you do become more aware of the harsh words. You're starting to notice them more in your inner dialogue. Oh gosh, look, there. So one thing I really remember doing when I first came across nonviolent communication, which was 15 years ago now, there were quite a few things I just chose to stop using in my dialogue. So one of them was should. I stopped using should. I stopped using should to myself. I stopped using it. Well, actually, I don't think Lana was only a baby. I don't think I was using, but I stopped using them. I stopped using it. So whenever I had that word should come up, I went to see, oh, well, could I say the word choose? What word can I transplant with that? So you may find there are things like that you can start to go, oh, well, what else could I say? What else can I think instead? But in terms of a deeper way, there are a few ways of further disidentifying from the harsh thoughts. So there is one way that you can do it, which is you can see these as, like the two children in the park and the child that's hitting with the stick, that they're doing that because they're upset, because there's things going on for them, there are underlying reasons, and we can really listen to those. So that is one approach that you can do. You can hear these judgmental thoughts as like little hurt inner parts of us, and you can really hear them and go through that route. Now, personally, I found, because I was so identified with all the shame thoughts and the guilt thoughts and the judgment thoughts, that just didn't, it was too complex for me to do that. So the way I went with it is to set loving limits with the thoughts. So it would be like with the child with the stick, I set loving limits, and to replace them with compassionate thoughts instead. So where are we? So there are a few different ways of thinking about this. So one way I love to think about it is that our thoughts, those thoughts are like a menu of consciousness. So I tend to think that they're up here. The menu is kind of up here on my top right. And it's kind of like when the thought comes, it's like a menu, almost a menu, and a waiter offering us the menu. And here they are. And this thought is on the menu. And you can see it in the writing. You should do this. What will they think of you? Any of those things. And because we've observed that when we have a certain thought and it leads to the shame or the guilt, whatever it is, and then we're likely to do X, Y, and Z, then it's kind of like knowing that if I have a menu and I choose an M&M's ice cream sundae from the menu, and I eat it, which is like I internalize it, I imbibe it, then I'm going to feel really agitated and really spaced out. And with my children, I'm not going to be able to be the way I want to be with them. So just like we can choose the physically healthy option by saying, no, look at that. No, I don't want M&Ms, because I remember I had M&Ms about 20 years ago, and I did have that response. And so ever since, I'd be like, there's no way I'm ever having another M&M, and I'm not willing for my children to have them either, because I observed, I know that. I would just say, no, I'm not going to have an M&M's ice cream sundae. I'm going to have, and I choose something that I love instead. It's a bit tricky for me at the moment because I'm on the teeth diet, not having anything sweet, but normally it'd be something like chocolate mousse with lashings of cream on it, something like that. Be like, yes, of course I'm going to choose that. Am I going to choose the M&Ms? No, absolutely no way in ever. No way. Not ever. I remember how I felt. I'm not ever choosing that again. Chocolate, the chocolate with the cream. Yeah, I can so do that. Oh, I feel so, I love it. Yes. So it's the same thing. It's really the same thing. It's basically saying, here are the thoughts. You're so this, you're so that. We're just like, oh gosh, I really know if I do that, that leads to this and that leads to that. And why would I do that to myself? I'm just not going to do this to myself. That's a no. What would I like instead? Well, I'd love some, so I'm going to say no to the, I wish I could think of a funny thing to say. It would be fun, like the M&M's guilt, something like that. I'm going to say yes to the chocolate compassion, something like that. And, you know, something that I know, compassion, when I have my inner compassionate voice, I'm like, oh, it feels so yummy. And my whole body stays so yummy. And oh, yes, it feels so great. Love it. So for this metaphor, I really invite you, if that resonates with you, that metaphor, is you think of a food that you really hate or that your body really reacts to, and think of shoulds and shaming thoughts and all those judgments as being that. And Natalie, yes, to chocolate compassion. Yes, I love it. Yeah, me too. And think about a food that you would pretty much always say, or you would always say yes to if you're in a restaurant and it's on the menu. It's just a yes. It's a no to that, it's a yes to that. And think about it in that way. That can be a helpful way to remember and make that kind of association. And it can then help it be easier for you to say, no, I'm not going to have that because I know that I'm going to feel spaced out or sick, or no, basically I'm going to feel guilt and shame and this, and I don't want that. I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to imbibe it. And it becomes much easier to as you get more aware, your consciousness expands about what's happening, and you develop more of that bigger self, which is not only awareness, it's awareness and will. So you have not only awareness, you have choice. So you have choice to go, oh, okay, I am going to write that down as well. Awareness and will. I love as I talk, I get more clear about things. So you have awareness and you have more choice to go, no, I'm not going to imbibe that thought. No, thank you. And I am going to imbibe oh, sweetheart, I really hear that you, whatever it might be, like you have done something I don't enjoy with my children. Gosh, I really hear that. You don't want to be like that, sweetheart. And yeah, I'm right here. I'm listening. It sounds like you're feeling quite stressed. Yeah, I was feeling frustrated. Yeah, I hear you, sweetheart. And I really know you don't want to be like that. No, I really don't like being like that. I'm right here. I'm listening. I love you. I know you don't enjoy that, and I really hear that you're frustrated. Do you want to talk more about, so you can get the sense. Give G's. I'm going to just write that. G's of compassionate response instead of guilt. Okay. So another way of that metaphor. Hi, Corinne. Welcome. Another way I really like, and again, you may find your own metaphor. I really invite you to find your own metaphors that really fit for you. So I watched The Matrix again recently, so I don't know if you've watched that. And if you have children, I'm going to mention one word that you might not want them to hear. So perhaps you want to put your headphones on, or just be aware that it's just going to be a word in a minute that I'm going to speak. So I don't know if you remember, it's in The Matrix, the first film. It's right near the end. Neo gets brought back to life by Trinity's love, which I think is really important. The compassion comes first. So we've got that sense of compassion, and then there are these bullets that are coming towards him. He's come to life again, and he simply says no. If you haven't seen this scene before, I really recommend just looking up on YouTube, the scene where Neo says no, because I had a look after watching the film. I went to see, is there that snippet that is. It basically says no, and what I love about this, it's such a loving limit, because it's like with children. There's no, there's no, and there's not a no either. It's a really, it just is. It's a no that just is. It's a simple no. No, I'm just not willing. I'm just not willing. I'm not willing for that to happen. I'm not willing to let the bullets of which is what they are. They're emotional bullets. We've kind of gone from sticks to bullets. It's simply a no. And what I loved is that he kind of went like that, and that's the way I always see it. And it may be different for you. And if you've done NLP, it probably relates to the left, right, up, down thing. But for me, it's always if a thought comes in, it's actually comes in from over here, and actually it's a bit more behind me. But that's a bit hard to do. So if I have one now that I notice coming in, it's just a no. So like with Neo, and I'm going to use that word a couple more times. So hi, lovely. Is he just said no to the bullets, and they just stopped. So they stopped. They're all there in midair, and he puts his hand there, and he just looks at it, which is what he's doing basically. It's a thought. It's a menu of consciousness thought. And at that moment, all the bullets drop to the floor. And to me, that is what we're doing. We are, in that clear no, we're seeing, I don't believe this reality anymore. I don't believe a reality where those thoughts are true. I don't believe that those are actually anything about me or to do with me. It's a really clear no. It's simply a no. It's like I would never choose to eat M&Ms. It's simply a no. So I love that scene and when I saw it, I was like, wow, that's just exactly what I do. So profound, so profound. So it's really basically saying, I'm not going to imbibe this. And it really does change a whole, for me, it's changed my reality, my experience of life, my experience of myself. Because from this identified state, I was those thoughts. Of course they were true. I wasn't even, how could I even question them? They were completely, they were me. And that's just how it was. So the guilt and the shame and the ongoing pain, emotional sticks were this ongoing thing that there was no even thought of choice. But as we go on this process, and as I've gone on this process of expanding the awareness, finding my willingness, creating choice, choosing, it comes to this place where it's a thought. It's a thought. It's not true. It was never, ever true. It isn't true. It's actually not true about you. It never was, and it never will be. And it really is a thought in consciousness that has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. It's kind of like a virus or I don't know what you'd call it, but it just gets passed down and passed down until we do this process of seeing that it's not true. It's not true. And it's like the two children at the park. It's simply coming to that point where, of course, you're not going to, if your child is being hit by another child at the park, you're not going to sit there and keep nodding or keep giving them empathy. And to me, this is why I'm passionate about this approach and really differentiating guilt and shame and these kinds of feelings from other feelings, because lots of other approaches, and I have total acceptance for what approach anyone takes, but what often approaches will do is, we'll keep listening to the guilt and the shame and the guilt and shame. And to me, that's helpful if this is old guilt or shame that's coming up to be heard and healed. And absolutely, sometimes I will need to go back and listen to 11-year-old me who was really judged at school, and I'll listen to her and I'll listen to the shame and all the pain. But I'm not willing to stand by at the park and watching the child get hit by the stick. I'm not willing to do that. And really, that is what we're doing when we're consistently doing that. And yes, listening to the guilt and the shame feelings, we're keeping on creating them. And it's my passion to really help women in particular, mothers in particular, that anyone really wants to listen, is to really understand what's happening, and that we do have a choice. And yes, it's a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes like that, because we do need to do some whatever your own version of this is.
But it absolutely is possible to get free from guilt, and to, you know, I'm imagining to be completely free from new shame, new guilt, new shame. Yes, we absolutely may need to hear the old guilt and the old shame, but to actually stop ourselves feeling and creating new guilt and new shame and all the feelings that come with new judgment. And I think that is a profoundly important task, because as mothers, as parents, us shifting that, you know, what gets passed on from generation to generation has a profound impact on not only our children, but the kind of whole menu of consciousness that's available. Really, I think it's so important. I've got some people coming back, ex-husband. I'm just on a Facebook Live. Okay. So, what I wonder is, would you like to be freer? Would you like to be freer from hitting yourself from emotional sticks? Is that something that you'd like? And if so, what's your next step in this process? There may be something in the pieces that I explained that resonates with you, and you go, oh, I'd like to do that, or I sense I'm here and I'd like to work on this. Or you may have your own completely different paradigm. This is just one way that I found. And if so, you know, what is it? What was your next step? What would you like to do? And because each of our journeys are so unique, I so trust you. I trust what you feel called to do. I trust what you feel inspired to do. Because really, it's a life-changing thing. And you know, my experience, as I say, has been that freeing myself from guilt, and 97% probably 99% freeing myself from shame, because I do occasionally imbibed it still, is that it means I have so much more to give to my children, to the people in the world. I have so much more capacity to be doing. I wouldn't be doing, there's no way I could be doing Facebook Lives if I was doing that. I wouldn't be here doing this. I couldn't be doing any of the stuff I'm doing in the world. So, you know, seeing that you giving yourself this gift of being on this journey, not only is a gift for yourself, for your children, for your partner, for your family, for your friends, it does mean you have a capacity to give more, because you can show up in the world without, you know, oh gosh, what are they thinking of me, and, you know, whatever the pieces are, because you have more, there's more self-love there. There's more absolute unconditional love for, you know, whatever happens, if you forget your words, or you know, trip up, or you don't quite say what you wanted to say, or you missed out some things, or you notice that some people weren't listening, or whatever it is, there's not, you're going to be less and less doing this. So focusing on one thing can be really helpful. Well, I did want to say one more thing. So for some people, it can be helpful. Even, you know, I'm not going to let myself, or your inner loving father might say, like with the stick at the park, they might say, I'm not willing for you to hit yourself with a stick anymore. That may feel a bit harsh in itself. So it might be more like, sweetheart, you don't need to hit yourself with that stick anymore. I really invite you to put it down. Would you like to put it down? It may be that you hit yourself with a stick and then you hit yourself with another stick and another one. It might be at some point you find that you are able to put it down. So wherever you are and whatever you can do, just seeing if you're willing to take whatever your next step is to be freer from stopping hitting yourself with emotional sticks. So if you want to come and share, I'd love to hear what you would, if there's something you resonate with there, if there's a step that you would like to take. And thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate you being here. And this topic is so dear to my heart, because, you know, my life has really radically changed, and I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing had I not done this. So I'm so grateful. So thank you for watching. Let's look at the time. And yeah, come and share. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to respond if you have any questions, and see you in the next Facebook Live. Okay, lots of love. Bye.